Alright, in this first video in a series on how to use lists and graph, specifically graphing linear equations, we are going to work on generating lists of numbers. So the calculator has some interesting functions to store lists in the list. And lists are columns of numbers the calculator uses to store numbers. It's very convenient to do it this way. So I want you to know there are 6 lists already stored in your calculator, and they're very cleverly named L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, and L6. And you can name more if you want, but typically we won't need more than 6. And if L1 was this list, it has 8 elements, 5, 3, 4, 2, 7, 8, 2, 1. We say that L1, 3, so this means the third element of L1, 1, 2, 3 is 4. L1, 6 is 8, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the sixth element of L1 is 8. So I need you to take a minute and find L1 element 2 and L1 element 8. And I think you'll see L1 element 2 is 3 and L1 element 8 is 1. Starts at 1 here. This is different for some programming languages. It does start at 1. And to store these, you use the store button. So I like to use the stow that looks like that. Sometimes that confuses kids because when you're programming it looks like an arrow. So if I put 5 into L1 element number 1 and 7 into L1 element 2, and then I were to call element 1, I would get this list, 5, 7. And notice the curly braces. That's typically how lists are denoted. So we're going to create a list, and I'm not going to address the advanced options here. These advanced options are for those who sort of want to take on a little bit of a bigger task in programming, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a program that stores as many consecutive numbers in a list as the user would specify. So program, I'm going to create new, and let's call it maybe list prac for list practice. Alright, and I'm going to do my same 8 that I normally do. First, clear home. I like a nice clean home screen. I'm going to display my username or my hacker name, and that is of course the Math Prophet. And then because I want the user to see that, I'm going to pause it, press enter. Alright, that's not anything new. So when we start thinking about this, we need to think about what do we need from the user. We need to know how many consecutive numbers they want. Oh, that's easy. We only need one input. So I'm going to input number of terms. And I have a student who likes to remind me that number of terms fits exactly. And so I want to make sure I use that for him. There you go. I'm not going to say his name. Whoops. Alpha. And I'm going to store that in n. And there we go. All right. So now I know how many terms I want. That's n. And so I don't want to have to make a lot of code. This is perfect for a for loop. So I'm going to use a for loop. For is number 4, of course. I think that was probably something the programmers did intentionally. So I've been using W for this counter in class. I think I probably used I in my previous programs. It doesn't really matter. You just need to remember what it is. We're going to start at 1 and we're going to go to n. Okay, this is the number of terms here. And so we're just going to store W, alpha W. So it's going to start at 1. And we're going to store that in list 1. And list 1 is here above the blue command above the 1. So I'm going to store that in L1 element W. So let me do this, and then I'm going to end it, and then I'm going to tell you what this thing is going to do. I suppose we should also display L1 when we're done. Alright, so what this is going to do is when W starts out at 1, it's going to store 1 in the first element in L1. Then it's going to go to 2, and it's going to store 2 into 2 in the second cell of L1. And then 3 will store that into the third element. So when we run it, I'm going to execute list practice. It's by me, of course, and I'm going to go with 9 terms. So we see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then presumably this goes 8, 9. Alright, so that's the way a list works. And so this is off the screen, so let's maybe print them while we're in the loop. And then actually if you want to check your list above in the stat command, you can actually go and check your list, and here's my L1. I'll clear my L2, that's from AP Stats, I'm sure. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this actually reminds me of a problem we had. What if I'm going to run the program again, number 6, but instead I only want 4 terms. I'll run it. Oh, it did not work. And the reason is because 1, 2, 3, 4 is what I printed in there. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 were already in there. So just like when we were initializing variables for while loop, and sums, we need to initialize the list. We need to clear the list, and that's why I was going to here. You can see we have clear list. All right, so we need to go back to our program. Don't need the second program. I'm going to edit my list, and so right above here, I need to make sure I clear the list. So if I go to stat, clear list, and tell it which list you want it to clear, L1. Now, there was one other error we were going to fix. We wanted to have it display here the term. So I'm going to enter a line here, and we're going to program this to display the terms. This, again, it's not going to be terribly exciting. I don't think we want this anymore. So now let's see how it works. And I just want 4 terms. Let's see if it gives me 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, and I can check my list over here, and I see it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it got rid of 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 because it cleared this whole list, and then it put 1, 2, 3, and 4 there. And so if I ran it again with fewer terms, so I want 3 terms now, 1, 2, 3, and if I go check my list, whoops, stat, not program, you see that it has 1, 2, 3 here. Now this isn't a terribly interesting program. It just takes consecutive numbers and puts them in here. So that's not really our challenge. Now our challenge is to put evens or odds in depending on what our user wants. So we're going to modify list practice to determine whether they want even or odds. Alright, so we're still going to have clear list. What we need here is some lines. So I'm going to put some lines there. And my daughter's coming up. I'm programming a video. I'll be down in a minute, okay, love? Sorry about that. Alright, so I'm going to clear the list. Now I need a menu. So, program, I'm going to use a menu. And we talk about menu in the basics Video 2, if you don't remember, whenever you use a menu, the syntax is first of all the title of the menu. Whoops, I forgot a parenthesis, not parentheses, quotations. Quotations, even or odd. All right, and then that's the title. And then option number 1, alpha lock, even first, and that will be our label A. And then we'll do odds, and that will be our label B. Alright, and then close that. Now if you see the advanced option here, you can try to do this with a single for loop, but I'm going to go down here, and since I already have this, I'm going to go ahead and just make this label A. So program, and I'll put this, make this the even. Now you maybe haven't thought about what makes a number even, but it turns out that 2 times a number is what makes it even. So I'm going to just put 2 here. So 2 times a number, so it'll start at 1. 2 times 1 is 2. It'll put 2 in there. It'll put 2 into the first element. Then when W comes around and it's 2, 2 times 2 is 4, it'll put that in the second element. And it will display it, and then it will end, and we can show the list if we wanted to, but this might be a really long list. I'm going to get rid of these extra spaces here. And then I need to do label B. Now, again, if you're clever, you can try this to do this with the menu and then try to do it with just one for loop. I encourage you to try that. But we're going to try label B, so program, I'm going to arrow down to label, label B, and so we're going to copy this with just one little change, and we need to think about that. So program for alpha W, I missed, from 1 to n, because we're still asking for the user to give us the number of terms. But now, if you've never thought about what an even number is, you've definitely never thought about what an odd number is. And so mathematicians define an odd number as 2w, or 2n, plus 1. And I'm going to store that into L1, where the W keeps track of my element here, and then we're going to end it. Now, there's an interesting thing here. We did introduce a bug, for those of you who are like, wait. So let's run this. Whoops. Quit out of here. Let's run it. Program number 6. I want 4 terms, and I want the evens. I guess I need to display 2 times that, but I was focused, of course, on here. So 3, 5, 7, 9. It ran the odds. I wonder if I mislabeled the. Whoops. Quit. Clear. Program right arrow. List practice. Pause, press enter. Number of terms. Clear 1. Even is A. Odd is B. Label A. So this should read display 2W. Label B. 2W plus 1. Right, so I'm sure what it did here was, let's run it again. See if we fix the quit here. Program number 6. That's me. I want 4 terms, and I want the evens. 2, 4, 6, 8. Check my list. 1 or 3, 5, 7, 9. Well, this lets us know the second bug that we introduced. This should start at 1. And if I go back here, I want it to, whoops, I'm editing. I wanted it to start at 1. And so if I go down to the list here, you can see because the for loop starts at 1, when I put 1 in here, I'm going to get 3. So it's actually 2 higher than what I need to do. So I either need to subtract 1 from W before I do that, or just minus 1 here. So I'm going to change this to minus 1. So now when I put 1 in, I get 2 minus 1 is 1. And what's happening here is after it runs this, it's running B as well. And we can show that because, boy, I introduced a lot of bugs here. We're going to display 2W minus 1, 2 alpha W, that's not a W, minus 1. And so if I run the program now, what you'll see is 4 terms. I'm going to run even, but you see that it gives me the odds because I don't skip over label B or stop the program. So what I just need to do is I need to put a stop in label A. So stop after label A, so that if I'm running label A, it skips here. I'm going to enter stop program because it needs to not run. Where are you? Stop. Return probably would work too. Let's see if we got it now. I want 4 terms. I want them to be even. Right, again, I put it inside the loop, so it automatically stopped. That was dumb. Hopefully you didn't make that mistake. Well, I'm having a bad day today in my programming here. We're all human. Of course, it ran this and it stopped here. I'm going to clear this line, and I'll put the end here. And instead of end here, I want it to be stop. Now, when I run it, I'm confident this time that things will go perfectly. 2, 4, 6, 8. If I look over at the list that I've stored, I have 2, 4, 6, 8. Now, of course, I know it's working for the odds. Now I need to check it for the even. Or I know it's working for the evens. I need to check it for the odds. 1, 3, 5, 7. And I'm going to look over here at the list. 1, 3, 5, 7. So there we had it. We were able to put the odds or even in the list depending on what the user wants. I'll give you a hint for the single for loop. What you need to do is make, whether you subtract 1 or not, a variable. And when you do that, then you can use a single for loop depending on whether it's even or odd. Thank you, and in the next one we're going to use this to put numbers in L1 and L2 and graph them. Thank you.